What if I told you there's a company that deliberately loses $30 on every single order it ships, and it's doing it on purpose? Not because it's failing. Not because it can't figure out its finances. But because it's executing one of the most aggressive, calculated business strategies in modern retail history. We're talking about Temu, a 2-year-old app that went from 0 to 185 million monthly active users. A platform that in 2024 alone moved nearly $70 billion worth of products. And a company that, according to analysts, burned between $8 and $9 billion in a single year, and called it a plan. This isn't a startup struggling to survive. This is a war. And Amazon is the target. To understand what Temu is doing, you first have to understand what it's up against. Amazon didn't just build a shopping website. It built the infrastructure of modern commerce. 2-day delivery, Prime membership, a fulfillment network so massive it would take decades and hundreds of billions to replicate. By 2024, Amazon controlled roughly 40% of all US e-commerce. It had warehouses everywhere, loyalty programs millions of people paid for, and a brand so trusted that most Americans opened the app without even thinking about it. For any new player, breaking into that market wasn't just difficult. It seemed impossible. So Temu didn't try to compete the traditional way. It decided to detonate the entire pricing model of the industry. Temu launched in September 2022. But it didn't come from nowhere. It's the international arm of PDD Holdings, the Chinese company behind Pinduoduo, one of China's largest and most profitable e-commerce platforms. Here's what makes this important. PDD Holdings generated $34.8 billion in revenue in 2023. Pinduoduo was printing money in China. That meant PDD had a war chest, a massive, profitable domestic business that could fund an international expansion without flinching. So when Temu entered the US market, it wasn't a startup asking investors for patience. It was a profitable giant using one arm of its business to bankroll a global land grab with the other. And it moved fast. Faster than anyone expected. Within 1 year of launching, Temu hit 100 million US users. That number reached 185 million monthly active users by August 2024. But the way it got there, that's the real story. Temu didn't just run a few ads and offer discounts. It flooded every single channel with money. In 2023, it spent an estimated $2 billion on Meta ads alone. Its global advertising budget for 2024 climbed to $4.3 billion. It ran 3 separate 30-second commercials during the 2024 Super Bowl, at roughly $7 million per spot. That's $21 million in airtime for 90 seconds of television, plus another $15 million in coupon giveaways tied to the campaign. It bid on over 900 keywords in app stores to guarantee it showed up at the top of every search. It paid influencers to flood TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube with haul videos. It offered new users $50 off their first $100 order. It sent some users over 100 push notifications, emails, and text messages within 3 weeks. And the prices themselves were designed to feel almost unreal. A pair of earrings for $1. A phone case for $2. A blender for $8. Products that would cost 4 or 5 times more anywhere else. The math on this is staggering. Analysts estimated that Temu was losing around $30 per order, after product subsidies, free shipping, and marketing costs were factored in. In its first full year, that added up to losses between $8 and $9 billion. And yet, it worked. What Temu was running is called a loss leader strategy. The idea is simple: you sell at a loss to acquire customers, then gradually pull back subsidies once those customers are locked in and used to your platform. Amazon itself did this for years. It lost money for nearly a decade before turning consistently profitable. Uber did it. Netflix did it. But Temu was doing it at a scale and speed nobody had seen before. It expanded to 45 countries in under a year, spending over $3 billion in that push alone. The internal goal was clear: saturate markets so aggressively that pulling back would become painful for competitors, not just for Temu. The calculation was this: if Temu could get a customer to place 4.2 orders, it would break even on the acquisition cost. After that, every order was increasingly valuable. The bet was that once users got comfortable with the prices, the app, the gamified shopping experience, they'd stay. And they'd stop comparing prices elsewhere. Temu was spending $38 to $45 to acquire each paying customer in the US. It was absorbing that loss knowing that long-term retention would turn the numbers positive. But here's where the story takes a turn nobody fully predicted. Temu's entire model was built on a legal but controversial trade loophole called the de minimis exemption. Under US law, any package worth under $800 could be shipped directly from China into America completely duty-free. No tariffs. No customs complications. That meant Temu could ship a $3 item straight from a factory in Guangzhou to a doorstep in Ohio without paying a single cent in import tax. That loophole was the engine. Remove it, and the whole model cracks. In May 2025, the Trump administration eliminated the de minimis exemption for packages from China. In August 2025, it was ended for every country in the world. The impact on Temu was immediate and brutal. Logistics costs jumped 15 to 20% overnight. Prices on the app started rising. Items went out of stock as the supply chain scrambled to adapt. Temu's US daily active users plunged 52% in May compared to March. PDD Holdings, Temu's parent, reported a 47% collapse in net profits despite growing revenue. In a matter of months, the single policy change that Temu had never fully planned for tore through the model it had spent billions building. So did Temu destroy Amazon? Not quite. And that's the uncomfortable truth buried in this story. While Temu's US user base fell 52%, Amazon's sales grew 13% in the following quarter. Amazon's unit sales accelerated. Its fulfillment infrastructure, the thing Temu had no equivalent of, became its biggest competitive advantage the moment the rules changed. Amazon had warehouses full of products already on US soil. Temu had a direct-from-China model that suddenly didn't work. Amazon's costs barely changed. Temu had to overhaul its entire supply chain. By the end of 2025, Temu had matched Amazon in cross-border e-commerce market share globally at 24%, a remarkable achievement for a 3-year-old company. But in its most important market, the US, it was pulling back, raising prices, and restructuring. The war had cost Temu billions. And the weapon it relied on most, the loophole that made ultra-cheap prices possible, had been taken away. Here's what this story actually teaches us. In 3 years, it went from nothing to a global force with nearly $70 billion in merchandise volume. But it built an empire on a foundation that a single government decision could crack. And that's the hidden risk in every genius disruption strategy. The variable you can't control, the policy you didn't model, the political decision made in a room you were never in. Amazon survived for the same reason it always has. Not because it was cheaper, but because it built infrastructure that outlasted every storm. Temu's story isn't over. It's adapting, opening warehouses, shifting strategies. The question now is whether it can win a fair fight, the kind where the loophole is gone, the rules apply to everyone, and the only thing left is execution. And honestly, that's a much harder game to win. If you're finding this breakdown useful, hit that like button. It helps more people find stories like this one. The biggest business stories aren't always about the companies that won. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from watching what happens when a billion-dollar bet meets an unexpected wall. Temu spent billions trying to rewrite the rules of retail. The rules rewrote back. And somewhere in that collision is a lesson every business, big or small, should probably be paying attention to. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.